Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Kaga, and we're going to go straight into this one, and I'm not going to talk too much about the Bayern. It's the Tier 6 German battleship. It has these very interesting 380mm guns. At least that's the caliber I'm thinking of right now. I'm pretty certain that's the same caliber that you get on the Gneisenau, the Bismarck, and the Tirpitz. And, you know, as one should come to expect, with the same guns being on higher tier vessels, and in more or less the same turrets, actually, the performance down here at Tier 6 is, well, what you'd come to expect. They're not fantastic. Outside of their optimum engagement distance, which is about 10 kilometers, they're more or less shotguns. And even then, within their optimal engagement distance, the forces of RNG are quite profound, actually. The scatter of shot on average is quite wide, and at the same time, you know, the fact that I don't feel compelled to throw on the accuracy upgrade, and by the way, that was just a poorly aimed shot. The fact I don't feel like the compulsion to add that accuracy or aiming fire control system modification to remove some of the dispersion values from the Bayern, and instead of opted for what has become my de facto secondary preference upgrades to the German battleships by increasing the range of their secondaries, says a lot about the accuracy and even the dispersion of the Bayern. While it's not fantastic by any stretch of the imagination, it's livable. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of the German line, is that they're not fantastic in any given respect, but they're survivable enough and livable enough that this stuff doesn't really matter so much. I know you probably have gone through the Japanese battleships to a certain point, you've gone through the American battleships to a certain point, and you expect, how shall I put it? You expect some characteristics that shine through above all others. Like with the Japanese, they have, with few exceptions, the punchier guns of their tiers. They tend to be a little bit more dispersed in their format, and it leads itself to a very active style of play that can go from snipey to intermediate range. You have the American battleships, which are, for all intents and purposes, the bane of everything that is a destroyer and everything that flies. And then you have the German battleships, which, well, they're not fantastic against any one particular enemy, unless they get close, and then they're the bane of everything. But even then, I think per salvo you don't just get the same like deleting type results that you would out of some of the other nations, just because of the way the guns tend to be a little bit more random. Things tend to be a little bit more, for those of you who also play World of Tanks, it tend to have that same character that some of the Soviet tank destroyers have, and maybe some of the Soviet heavy tanks, in terms of they're fairly resilient. They're hard-hitting, but the whims of RNG are going to rule the day. But that's enough about their style, right? You've seen the title of this video, and you're probably wondering, well, why am I have that title, and I'm talking about the general style of it, and you're right to point that out. But it also comes back down to what I've chosen to upgrade on this particular ship. It's been secondaries primarily. For those of you who are probably sitting there wondering, well, when are you going to talk about the advanced fire training? Well, yeah, okay, you got me there. I'm going to start talking about it right now because that is part of the secondary build. When you get to the choice of your 4-point captain skill, without a doubt, you're going to pick your advanced fire training. It just makes sense, right? The other one's manual control of AA. It's nice, but for the most part, that's not why we're playing the German battleships. They have great secondary range. In fact, pretty much starting at tier 7 with the Gneisenau, also the Scharnhorst, by the way, this is also true with that ship. When it comes to those pesky cyclones, the German battleships are unique in that with the right modifications, the right captain skills, they can service with their secondaries any target within a cyclone. Now, the Bayern is probably the first of the ships in the line where, provided you have the secondary modification that extends range by 20%, removes dispersion by 20%, and you have AFT, you can service most of that engagement distance. But AFT has another benefit for the Bayern, and subsequently all the German battleships. Now, it comes down to, you've probably been noticing that even before I came into secondary range here, that these purple ribbons have been appearing up there in the upper right-hand corner of my battle interface. And it's got to do with the fact that while we're not emphasizing the anti-aircraft performance of the Bayern, we do get a fairly strong showing of it after AFT is researched, if you will, or purchased on the captain. And that's got to do with the fact that the 20 millimeters anti-aircraft armament on these German battleships is superlative. As you can see, I'm just taking little bits of this guy's air wing every few seconds they're there. Not that we have to worry about air attack from this point onward, but this is fairly typical of the German battleships. And so long as you take the time to manually select the target for your AA and thereby focus their fire a bit more, then you can take what they have and push it to the most possible. I think like the Gneisenau right now, at least for me, I can get it up to, without any of the AA specific modifications, and it's just the captain's skill and the upgraded hull, I can push that up to AA score of 79, which it doesn't make me immune to air attack, but it certainly does make the enemy carrier players think twice about attacking me, and that in and of itself is of good value because it allows me to get into brawling range much, much better. And much the same on the Bayern is that it's not your primary strength, and this is the big thing about having advanced fire training is that it just gives you the extra opportunity to get into the effective full combat performance range of it, and I'm gonna just go ahead and define that is the range that we have the most of our weapon systems being able to brought to bear effectively. And that's not necessarily at your secondary battery engagement range, but it's in there, plus or minus a kilometer. And that comes back down to the effectiveness of not only your major caliber guns, but also whether or not your secondaries will be able to fire or not. And that's, personal preference on whether you want to straddle that line very closely or not. So right now we've done a fair bit this match, and it's not going to be a spectacular match. I'm going to just go ahead and put that out there. It's going to be a fairly average match in terms of performance. No amazing, devastating strikes that I remember. No spectacular citadels out of this one. It's just average aiming, average performance. But, if you had an average game and it wasn't, well, in this case, you'd probably be brought to an end by the enemy carrier. Well, I don't think I'd have to worry about that right now. And that's why when I'm going through the research, or not really the research, but the captain training on the German battleships, I prioritize getting the advanced fire training first, just to give myself a little bit more breathing space to get into range. And I know this is a very rare match, in that there are 2 aircraft carriers on either team, but I'm not really gonna complain too much. It's not like they can be super effective against me. Although right now, I'm a little bit caught in a pickle here. I'm kind of happy that I can bring the secondary battery to bear, but it doesn't matter what I'm going to end up giving juicy broadsides to somebody here. Of course, the one I point my guns at starts angling. Oh, it is nice that we are able to engage that enemy battleship well before he actually becomes a threat, and the Allied destroyer does manage to pick up some of the slack, and he will claim him there with that last spread of torpedoes. And quickly as that, our team has the requisite points, and I think this illustrates quite effectively why one should consider this particular skill. Even though you could make arguments that, you might want manual AA control because, 100% increased DPS, if you're very quick with the control clicks, can be quite the insurance measure. But hey, my personal preference is to extend the range thing of it first. Though you might have some point that, maybe you want to consider the manual fire control in addition to AFT. Oh, I'm not certain I would do that, because by the time you're there, you've probably run into the part where, well, you've grabbed basic fire training to increase the rate of fire of your secondary battery. You've gone through expert marksman, superintendent, advanced fire training, and you probably want to also grab basics of survivability and high alert, because those are just generally useful on battleships. They really are. And once you have, the secondary battery is what you're trying to accentuate. So why you wouldn't get manual control of secondary battery, I don't know. But once you have all those skills, you're out of points. So I'm not really sure that giving up AFT or the manual secondaries for the manual AA is really worth it. But that's my preference. Your mileage may vary. If you have a different build for the German battleships, go ahead, let me know in the comment section. It's always interesting to discuss this stuff. Alternatively, you can head on over to the Google Plus page. The link to that will be in the description box down below. Facebook also works. That too is also in the description box. Please keep your eyes open for that. Also, the feedback thread for this video will be located in the comment section as usual. Please let me know what you think either in the YouTube comments or in that thread itself. I really do like this Google Plus stuff. All the options I can have for engagement and other content, posts and whatnot. It's quite a nice site. I do hope that people head on over there, check it out, and, consider sticking around. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you, and have a good day.